hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I think in Texas, I think it's probably still good afternoon, possibly good morning in Colorado. I don't know. It's time zones. Everywhere is time zones. I'm here in Print Island. It's freezing cold today. As you can see, I'm dressed up as an Irish fisherman for no apparent reason. But welcome to Print Island and welcome to the Lighthouse. My name is Richard Askam. I am the Lighthouse Keeper here on Print Island. And I have the good fortune to be able to invite anybody I wish to come and join me and take a view across the island and then doing so across the industry. And today I got very, very lucky, not only because I had two guests, but two of probably the best podcasters that I think that you will ever find that are called Rusty and Maddy. Please welcome Rusty Pepper and Maddy Alcala.
Thanks for having us on.
I was looking around. I was like, who are these podcasters?
I know.
We'll start high and then it'll diminish after that, so don't worry about it. But
come back down to the island.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining me on Print Island. It's a pleasure to see you both. And of course, we've been watching your content for the last few weeks that you very kindly record at Print Island Studios, but broadcast across the industry. How long have you both been involved in the POD Playbook?
Together since end of last year. So really this year is when we rolled out working together. I did a few episodes prior to that. And then I realized real quickly, you know what, there needs to be a second voice and a better voice. And so I reached out to Maddy. I'm like, hey, you in? And she's like, hell yeah, let's do this. And then she joined. She was gracious enough to join me. And it's been a lot better ever since.
Well, thank you, Rusty. Yes, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary. We haven't talked about how we're going to celebrate yet, but I think that we should have a special little something at least for a year of the show. It's been a lot of fun, but yeah, almost a year, Richard. And I always tell the story when Rusty reached out originally, I thought he was asking me to do one podcast with him. I did not think he was asking me to host a series of podcasts. And then as we wrapped up our first recording and we hit pause and we're ready to go, and Rusty's like, well, when are we going to do the next one? I was like, the next what? What are you talking about? But it's been a lot of fun and I have absolutely no regrets. And Rusty doesn't do himself credit. He does all the work. I just get to show up and chirp at him.
Nice.
We have a good time.
Yeah, that's good. You got the best end of that deal, I think, on that basis. And to be fair, he did say one at a time. He didn't just say one. So, I think that's, you see, I've got you back, Rusty. Don't you worry. So,
Thank you.
But it is kind of fun, isn't it? And I guess this is the world that we find ourselves in now that really didn't exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago, pre-COVID, this whole idea that we could just sit wherever you are in the world and talk to people wherever they are in the world just didn't happen. So we spent all our time on planes and trains and automobiles trying to find somewhere to meet. But this is, for me, has revolutionized the way that we can have these conversations. Do you, from a conversational point of view, do you enjoy it as much as I do, just being able to beam into people and have a chat?
I'll kick that off, but I would say yes, absolutely. I mean, they're curious by nature. And I think anybody that does this is because they have a curiosity. I love talking to people. I find it fascinating to hear different people. I love people's backstories. First of all, how'd you get to where you are? What made you to make that decision to go there? Sliding door type mentality. And, when you're doing a podcast, you really can talk to you get a lot of different opinions, perspectives, and it opens up the doors to be able to talk to some incredible people and that we really learn a lot from. So to me, it has to be able to do this anywhere. We're across 2 continents. And 2 states just within the U.S. It just makes it really easy to be able to do it. And the technology has gotten so much easier as well.
Mm. Yeah, Maddy, same for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rusty and I share this. We get very genuinely curious about the topics that we're asking our guests about and the guests themselves. So a lot of times we'll actually have to cut ourselves off a bit because we'll keep an eye on the calendar or the time. So no one really wants to listen to this for a few hours. But I just think of it as a conversation. It's a really unique way to start a conversation that usually had to happen in person. Now we get to have these conversations virtually with the people that we have on the podcast, but it starts an even bigger conversation than that, because then the people that are watching the show or commenting, it just opens up this dialogue that's really fun, and you get all these different perspectives brought in. And we mix the in-person as well. Rusty and I have done quite a bit of coverage at shows and print conferences, and you can't beat that, breaking bread with someone, but it's very nice, I agree, to have the virtual outlet.
But I think it's sort of hardwired into us as human beings to want to overhear interesting conversations. So if you're at a bar or you're waiting for a bus and somebody's talking, you're always what we would say wigging in, listening into conversations. So the job of the host, the job of the interviewer, the job of the moderator, wherever you are, in person or online, is to make that conversation interesting. And you guys do a brilliant job. You've got this great sort of chemistry between you anyway on the podcast, and it's always fun to listen to. So if it starts with entertaining, then everybody's going to lean in and want to hear more, right? That's what we all love.
I think if
Yeah.
you like the people that you talk to and you have a good, you're curious and they actually bring value to, it makes it really easy. It's like sitting down with a friend and just having a conversation and interviewing somebody. It brings you back to, you mentioned sitting in a bar. We were, a couple of years ago, we were sitting at D-Scoop after one of the sessions with some friends of ours that actually and became really good friends. And Jules Gonzalez from GPA, right? We were just talking and he started talking about, 5 cents a paper. And that's an episode that we just actually finally recorded together. And we did that live at Printing United. But that started
Saw that.
a conversation at a bar after an event where we really weren't even looking to do an interview with him initially, but the conversation was just so interesting and inspiring.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, we've got to get this into a session. And it just worked out that we were able to grab him during Printing United where we could actually do it at the podcasting booth. But that was, to me, one of those interesting little stories that it starts off from, like you said, just friends sitting around and talking. And then all of a sudden you have an interesting conversation that leads to something else.
And I think there's a gap, Maddy, in the trade show market for those conversations, those podcasts actually to happen live on stage. Because I think, I'm going to say this out loud, I think sometimes we all sit in those rooms, those lovely big beige ballrooms around the world, and we don't really listen to the person on stage because they're just presenting something and they're not talking to you, they're not talking with you, they're talking at you. And I think if we could, strange enough, I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, one of the biggest selling tickets at the moment is attending a live recording of a podcast. So are we saying that actually the style and the manner of these sort of conversations is much more entertaining and much more interesting for a conference crowd, let's say?
I think we're onto something there because I think it's quite a bit more authentic and that's true if you look at authenticity from a marketing perspective and just I think from a human standpoint. That's actually what a lot of people are craving. And so I'm going to come back to what you said, Richard, but weave in a small side note. I was talking to someone on our marketing team the other day about what different types of content performs, which I'm sure is what every marketing manager has a conversation about with any company in the world, right? What's performing, what's not, what's driving content. So nothing unique there. But consistently, so much research shows that people want to hear from people. They don't want to hear from companies. And I think that that's true for our industry is, it doesn't really exist for the print on demand space. And so there's been this kind of natural vacuum that I think Rusty and I have been able to come in and fill. But even if you were to compare a couple of people sitting on a table, having a conversation, joking a bit, sharing stories, talking about real stuff that's happening in their professional and personal lives to a published industry white paper, yes, maybe the white paper or the catalog or whatever it is going to have more official information, and that could be very helpful in citing a PowerPoint presentation. But I actually think that I'm not going to go and be like, oh, I really want to buy a ticket to hear that white paper read to me. Like none of us would say that, right? It's like you got to do it because you need the data to do the thing that you're trying to get done. But I think the unique part about the podcast is it's quite a bit more authentic. It's Rusty and I having a chat a lot of times with people that we know personally or we just met or someone we want to meet. So we're trying to get to know them. And I think that's a cool way to connect with someone because it is us connecting live and people get to see and experience that. And then they connect with us because they have a question and it just creates an atmosphere that's very conducive to conversation. And we don't cite our sources on the episode. It's not like I'm like, and here's the asterisk of where I learned this thing. It's just opinions. And so people can disagree and all of that. But I think that's actually very healthy as a way to have a conversation about a market.
And I guess if the rule of thumb is that the only job of a speaker is to be heard, then you have to find a way that the audience wishes to listen. So, and the reason I bring it up is obviously, podcasting has become quite the thing over the last few years, but it is just another form of marketing communication. So it's not in sort of the linear way that you just said about the PowerPoint. But if I could read it, then email it to me. Why do I need to listen to you? That kind of thing. So the opinion. I've always wanted to do radio, for example, ever since I was a boy. I've loved the idea of just talk radio. This is kind of just that. We've created the very thing I've always wanted to do. Strange, but I think it's fascinating to watch the response from people. You see this with the numbers of people that watch POD Playbook. We're finding this out, with Print Island, and we've only been going for less than 5 months, and the viewers are off the charts in terms of people that are watching the content because it's engaging. So, as the industry, maybe there's a lesson here for the wider world. Not just the few people that are doing it at the moment and doing it really well. Is this the way that trade shows should go, do you think, and conferences and smaller events and open houses, and just make it feel a bit more human?
I'm all for a more human, interactive type of experience. I mean, for me, I get bored if not. I mean, I couldn't imagine just having it. If I had to read a white paper, that'd be just a disaster. 'Cause I'd probably fall asleep halfway through it. But being able to talk and engage about the same topic with somebody that can literally explain it in a more intelligent or fun way, I'm all for it, man. It's funny you mentioned how events and stuff are they leaning more towards this type of format? Well, we've actually been approached by quite a few different events saying, "Hey, would you be willing to do a live stream of your podcast from our event?" We actually recently did that for a Cornita event. Actually, now it wasn't in person, but it was a live stream. I think there was 1,000 people signed up for it.
Yeah.
But that to them was really important. Is, hey, how can we come in and participate and be able to talk about a topic that would be relevant to the audience that was attending, and it would fit right in our wheelhouse, and it worked. And there's others out there that will be traveling to do the same. And so I think you'll see more of that, because to me, it's kind of like a fireside chat.
Yeah.
Where we're talking. And that's what I always enjoy those when I go to a conference. I don't really, the keynotes don't always hit me like, oh, I want to go see that keynote unless it's somebody special. But I love the fireside chats because you get a couple of different opinions sitting around in a very relaxed, typically less unscripted than a typical presentation.
Yeah, and that's the joy, isn't it, Maddy? Because we've all sat in keynotes and cleared our emails for 25 minutes, and that I'm sure that's as insulting to the speaker as it is to the event organizer that's booked them. But we crave a to and fro as human beings. It's in our nature. So having something that feels as though you're part of it, then that's got to make a difference, doesn't it?
I agree. And I think it's just all a matter of, well, first off, delivering a keynote, that's a tall order for someone. I think there's very few people. I studied rhetoric in college because I've always been fascinated by people that can actually really stand up and command a room. But stand-up comedians to me are a perfect example of this. I just saw a stand-up comic who did an hour-and-a-half set, and he's captivating the whole time.
Wow.
That's a crazy skill to be able to stand up in front of a huge audience of people and talk. And so I think that the keynote there, it can be very powerful and interesting, but it's very difficult. And there's probably a smaller set of us that can really do that well. Whereas conversations, most people can participate in a conversation. And so, Rusty and I have now gotten into a mode where, and especially when we're working with executives who have administrative assistants or people supporting them, a lot of time we get asked to provide a script or a structure or questions ahead of these episodes. And we're like, and we try because we don't want people to feel uncomfortable joining the show and give them some ideas. But, I think we used to prep people a little bit more, and we've actually realized we get way better content by just saying, hey, come up and talk to us. Talk to us like you're just going to, don't prep. Just, show up, try to have good lighting and good sound, because that's just makes this easier for everybody, but just have a conversation with us.
Yeah, correct.
And, it's much more accessible. And so I think a lot of it, to go back to the point about events, is you just need the variety. If you've got a really engaging keynote speaker, awesome. Let's get them on stage, because we'll all be captivated, but it's difficult to do that. And it's just creating more inclusivity in those conversations, because what's actually happening at those events, Rusty and I do this, I'm sure you do too, is the conversations are happening outside the room. Like the real stuff is getting shared outside of that ballroom or at the bar or the lunch table or whatever it is, where you can actually sit down and have a dialogue. So I think it's just doing more of that and making it more, frankly, inclusive to people to be part of those dialogues. And you don't have to be the most incredible polished speaker. You just have to be able to have a chat with someone and you can share your viewpoint.
Well, It's quite funny, isn't it? When was the last time that you went out for dinner and took cards or a script or notes or pre-prep people about what you're going to be talking about when you got there? We just don't need to do that, do we? It's become a little bit. I mean, I get that some people find it difficult. I understand that, and I do a lot of coaching with people that want to get better at public speaking generally, and most of the time I tell them that they're getting in their own way because they have irrational fears that just don't make sense to anybody. And once you get past that and you can just be yourself, then yourself is good enough for most people.
Yeah. And especially if you're telling an interesting story from a business perspective. I'm thinking of a presentation we saw at the Coordinate event in Miami this year, Coordinate Connections, and there was a founder that gave a presentation, and I thought it was fantastic. And I think the reason it was so good was he was very himself. He did not come across as this super polished, stuffy executive. That's not to detract from him. He's a very successful person, great company,
Yeah.
clearly knew his stuff. But he was just very authentic in terms of how he talked about his business and himself. And I got accolades from the audience as well. And so I love that advice, be yourself. And then, on the place cards at dinner thing, I know a few people where I feel like I would feel the need to bring a script to dinner, and I try to avoid dinners with them.
Yeah, quite exactly.
It's time for that.
That's self-fulfilling in that regard, isn't it? Really. So yeah, no,
I'd rather eat alone at the bar. Exactly.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what's really interesting, and this proves the point completely, because we're 16 minutes into our conversation, and I haven't even asked either of you to introduce yourselves. That's how easy it is to talk to people without having to be formal in any shape or form. However, I am going to stop for a moment and give you that opportunity, because I can't imagine there's anybody in the world that does that, or certainly the world of print, that doesn't know who you guys are. But give us the third, and in fact, it might be quite fun. Give us the 30-second overview of each other. You describe each other for me.
Be careful, Maddy.
Who's going first?
Rusty and I are making eye contact, like who's going first?
Ladies first.
All right. Thank you, sir. As a gentleman, as always. So Rusty Pepper is indeed a gentleman. I will start with that. But aside from it, he is also, I would say, one of the leading partnerships, strategists, really kind of development experts in the print space. Rusty started his career in this world on the side of promo. I was going to get there, so knows quite a bit about the promotional products market. He now leads partnerships at Taylor, specifically focused on their Taylor On Demand division, though it seems like every day I talk to Rusty, his remit grows a bit, and he's really looking at the world of print and on-demand and supply chains and helping brands and all sorts of different players do what they do better at scale. He's also the brains behind the POD Playbook podcast, my fabulous co-host, and a lovely person to spend time with.
Wow. Follow that, Rusty. No pressure.
And his 4 kids.
I don't disagree with anything she said.
Two.
You met.
I had one in the industry for a while, so yeah, it was no longer, but it was nice to have him in there for a little bit. But thank you for that really nice introduction, Maddy. So Maddy Alcala, my fabulous co-host, probably the smartest, coolest person I've had a privilege to work with. When I say wicked smart, she is sharp. She knows her business. She's been very successful. She's got a young career. I mean, it's I've had a lot more years over her, but she's accomplished way more in a quicker period of time than I ever will. Or I ever will, and she's already about half my age. So it's been really fun.
Just got my driver's license.
Yeah. But it's been really fun getting to know her. But yeah, so she was president of Guten, which was a leading print-on-demand platform for the industry, and also, I guess, the order mesh software. I'm not really sure how we're explaining that, but it's split off into the technology. And now she's part of the Taylor family because Taylor recently acquired that business. So we're now not only co-hosting together, but we're also working together in the world of print on demand. So that's the true brains, the beauty, and the overall flow of the print on demand playbook comes from Maddy.
See, we should do this more often.
Rusty.
It's so much more fun when you listen to somebody else describe you rather than yourself. So thank you both for doing that, and that's quite interesting.
A lot of my mistakes. So sorry, I didn't mean to over, but
that's good.
Whenever I mess up something, I'm always like, oh, Maddy would have got you. Right up.
Yeah, well, do you know what, Rusty? I speak on behalf of our gender when that happens a lot. Really in life, just generally anyway. We'll edit that out. But thank you. And it's interesting that you're now obviously working under the same metaphorical roof. I know you're in different locations in the US, but and it hasn't been that long, I guess, since that transaction happened. and I guess like all transactions of that size, it's going to take a while to bed down. But are you already starting to see the benefits of not only knowing each other and working on the podcast, but also working together in the same organization?
So I would say yes. And Rusty is not the only person I've known at Taylor for quite some time. I would say he's the person I know the best. But
Hmm.
our team had great relationships within the Taylor family already prior to the acquisition. So between Rusty helping us navigate, and I've certainly called him a few times in the past couple of weeks and saying this doesn't make any sense to me. What's going on here? So having someone that you feel comfortable with asking some of those dumb questions when you're starting out is very nice. But I think even more than that, Rusty and I were always collaborating already on strategy, but it was much more industry specific. We would talk about company stuff related to Guten and Taylor, but both respecting the fact that these were different organizations. Now we just have an opportunity to share a lot more, brainstorm a lot more. So I would say that's been great. And Taylor's a very big company, so the Guten order mesh component, we are our own small but mighty division at this point within the organization, and we've only been a part of the team for a little over a month. So
Hmm.
I would say it's still pretty fresh, but early returns are quite positive.
But I guess, and that's the joy in many ways of coming together rather than, starting a new job, starting a new role at a different company. You're essentially still doing the job that you were doing with Guten, but it now just happens to be under a different umbrella. So there's in many ways, there's nothing for you to learn about what you do, more to teach, potentially.
Yes, I would say it depends on the day. There are days I've had where it feels very familiar, and then there's days where I feel very much like the new kid at school, and everyone's talking a bit about stuff I don't fully know, and I'm meeting all these new people and trying to figure out how we fit in. But the Taylor team's been lovely and welcoming and has been very patient with us so far. But yes, it's a nice combination, though. It's not totally the same, but there's enough familiarity, enough of the team, enough of the customers in the market that it's like, okay, I know what I'm doing, but it's also enough different in a good way in terms of a new challenge, new colleagues, new opportunities, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get that. That's interesting. And in terms of challenges, I mean, obviously, 2025 will probably go down in history as one of the most challenging years in all of our lives. I think for very many reasons. Let's just call them headwinds. But what do you both see? Where you've got the opportunity from the top of the lighthouse, looking out across the industry. Well, what do you see coming down the tracks in 2026? Obviously, that merger is still bedding in, and we understand the acquisition is still finding its feet. So that there's a lot still to do with that. But in a general sort of high level view of the industry, what do you both see coming down the tracks?
I think 2026 is going to be a banner year. I'm so pumped for 2026. I feel like 2025 was an overall success. It wasn't, it was a resettling for a lot of the industry. There's still everybody I'm talking to is in that 5-7% growth range. I mean, yeah, you have the outliers that are up and higher than that, and some that are lower, but on average, 5 to 7%. So it's moving. 2026 though is I can't wait for it because there's been a lot of innovation that's been brought into the market over this past uh, in 2025 that we're going to start to see mature. And the B2B side of the market to me is really going to start sprouting from the roots that it's been planting. And all the tea leaves that we're seeing and all the signs just show that the enterprise is moving and it's going to really embrace POD. And I think finally the technology and the APIs are getting better to allow more of that to happen at a much quicker rate. So I'm excited about it.
And do you think, Maddie, I'm interested to hear whether, certainly from the US perspective, because I'm hearing this a lot from UK and from Europe, that the change in consumer behavior has changed the laws of economics from supply and demand to demand and supply. And so with POD particularly, and the availability of technology in the hand of a consumer who can pretty much order anything and expect it to be on their doorstep within 24, 48 hours. The world of print on demand, somebody I think at D-Scoop called it personalization on demand now, that we're reframing that. Do you think that's what's driving? You mentioned 5 to 7% there, Rusty, which is pretty strong in an otherwise difficult year. Do you think that's what's behind this, Maddie? That the consumer really now has picked up the opportunity, and the industry almost has to respond to that demand?
So, yes and no. I think that the print on demand industry historically, in many people's minds, has been synonymous with e-commerce drop shipping. Or photo. Those were kind of the two places print on
Yeah.
demand started in many senses, like photo and personalization, and then more of I call it the Shopify wave, right? Of Shopify and anybody can create a website to sell anything anywhere. That was huge for print on demand. And you see the growth pop up with that market of just making it easy to sell online, and e-commerce as a general way of transacting grew significantly in the past 5, 10, 20 years to become a main way that we all now transact. So I think those have been the, tailwinds for the industry along the way. But I think that the people who are seeing growth in the market now, and I always go back to businesses too, that I think a lot of the companies Rusty's talking about that are doing very well in the market have that as a part of the print on demand channel that they're supporting, but it's not the only one. And so
Mhm.
I think that, e-commerce in general, that's a lot more of the tail wagging the dog of, because it's so competitive to be able to get eyeballs to your website, that POD sellers and online merchants have become increasingly, I don't know, putting a lot more pressure on the supply side of the market, particularly with pricing and turnaround times and all of that, because a lot of that ecosystem is looking to compete with other big e-commerce giants like an Amazon. And so you do have that dynamic playing out anywhere where you're talking about more of the e-commerce dropship traditional POD model. But I think where there's opportunity is to support that, which is very much a volume economies of scale game. But on the flip side, think about print on demand as a make what you need when you need it strategy, not necessarily a minimum order quantity of one in a box drop shipped out. And that's where you
Sure.
get into these opportunities with corporate and print and B2B and different types of retail replenishment and all of these different angles. And that together, it's actually playing in all of those markets that creates a really strong growth profile, because they all rise and fall at different times and speeds. And I think that there's a little bit more of an opportunity, at least in my view, with like a corporate and promo side and all of that, for the supply side to come in and educate the demand and actually have that dynamic flip a bit. Because especially within the promo space, I think demand is lagging a bit in terms of how mature they are on the POD adoption curve, where the supply side, it's actually like, we've built all these technologies, we can bring this to you. Whereas more in the e-commerce, it's flipped. It's the brand that's selling online that's really putting the pressure on the producer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense completely, and that's really interesting to hear it from that perspective, because I guess most print shops that have invested over the last few years in the automated print software and all the MIS and everything, that the whole smorgasbord, if you like, of what's on offer. And in some cases, some of them are still waiting for the phone in the corner to ring. And over here, there's a bunch of people that are completely snowed under with inbound requests and orders. So how does that? There's always going to be winners and losers. I understand that in any sort of market shift. But how do you help the ones that are waiting for the phone to ring? What's the best advice that you can give to them?
I mean, I can start. I would say the producers that we work with that seem to be the most successful from a growth perspective are able to take common production technologies and explain to the market how those technologies can create different outcomes. So to go back to that, right? Like, I have a fleet of digital printing equipment. I'm great for e-commerce or marketplace fulfillment. And here's what that solution looks like. I have the same fleet of digital printing equipment, but I also can do one-offs to support your team store, whatever it is, right? So
Sure.
I think having the ability to, and it's not the same solution. There's different requirements and all of those things, but a lot of those larger shops or people who've been able to achieve that scale, it's taking ultimately what the supply side needs to be really, really good at, which is people, process, equipment, right? Like, what's happening within the four walls of the thing that you're making, and you need to be excellent at that. And then explain to different businesses or have different partnerships that help them bring that to different parts of the market on the demand side. So that would be my view, is just looking at being very thoughtful if you're still waiting for that phone to ring, of it's not just one channel, maybe like have multiple different channels that can drive demand, and really understand your customer of what they're looking for across those different segments.
Yeah, no, good point. Rusty?
I would also say, to kind of go a little bit further on that, I look at the global fulfillment networks that are out there, being able to, there used to be a day you printed what you made, right? That was like you sold what you could print if you're a printer. Now you don't need to. You can service globally and you can support clients globally, and you don't have to print every single item. And so if you're a part of like the Goon platform, for instance, you can literally plug in and you can route orders to any of the other providers, even competitors
Mm.
in that network to your customer, and your customer will not know. That you can support those customers through your competitors without them ever really knowing that it's coming from a competitor.
Mm.
That's a huge advantage that most people have now. If I'm an apparel decorator, I can sell print, traditional print, stationery, business card. It doesn't
Mm.
matter. I don't have to invest in the equipment. I just have to invest in the right networks and the right partners. And the technology has enabled that. It's the great equalizer. And that's why we always talk about at the heart of print on demand, the technology stack is the most important layer. Fulfillment, demand, it's there. It's always going to be there. But you have to have the right technology that's intelligent, that's agile, that makes it really easy to be able to service it. And if they're not finding and always out there looking for what is that next iteration of tech, then you're just going to get the same results. And it's not going to be great results.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's a good way of putting it as well. Thank you for that. So we're coming up towards the end of our time in the Lighthouse on Print Island. And we're also coming up to Thanksgiving in the US. So I think it's probably appropriate that I ask both of you to tell me what you're thankful for with regards to the printing industry as it is today. And then maybe a little prediction about what you see for this time next year. What would you like to see this time next year? So let's start with what you're thankful for in 2025. Maddy, you go first.
I was going to tell Rusty to go first because I went first last time, but thank you,
You're
Richard.
thankful that Rusty, you can be thankful that Rusty's going
I'm
first.
thankful that Maddy is going first, so I have more time to think.
I am thankful of Rusty as a co-host. Let's see. In the print industry, that was an easy one. I am thankful for the quality of people who work in this industry. I mean, our business that for anyone who's been through M&A, it can go smooth it possibly can go, and it's still a really challenging process. We had our twists and turns along the way, and other than just a personality flaw of refusing to let something go, the thing that got me through all of that was a lot of the industry people. And so I'm very thankful for that, for our friends, for our partners, for people who support the show, for our listeners, for Rusty, who carries the load a lot of the time in terms of just the work and the ideas and everything that he brings to that. What am I looking in this time next year? I agree with Rusty's take. I think 2024 and 2025 have been a lot of foundation building. I am looking forward to a lot of the innovations and partnerships coming to fruition next year in the industry. And so, we do a predictions episode. We talked a lot about consolidation and B2B and corporate and partnerships. Some of those things have happened in 2025, but I also think that the tariff roller coaster a lot of us have gone through and so many other things that were disruptive kicked those things out. So I am looking forward to them becoming even more real this time next year. So big press releases and announcements and cool stuff.
Great.
Vague answer.
Rusty.
Your turn, Rusty.
That was well said. I agree. Well, I agree with everything you said on the people side of it. The one thing that is amazing about this industry is the people. I absolutely love the people that I get to work with, talk with, be around. I mean, my favorite thing is going to the events because I get to see friends that they're like family now. And we literally are like little kids we get together and it's just like, we just run amok. And it's really nice to be in an industry like that. I am also thankful for the fact that we are operating in an industry that is evolving. You don't really get throughout your career. I was fortunate enough to see this at the .com. I was in that area when the internet really came alive, and we were very first web design agency in Texas. But now getting to be a part of the print on demand ecosystem industry as it's really evolving and taking shape, being a part of that at the founding level to really see it emerge and mature and evolve is really, really exciting. And I tell that to everybody that works in this industry is be very fortunate that you're working in an industry that is moving and growing at such a scale that print on demand is, because it just keeps absorbing more and more standalone industries into it, which just makes it better, bigger, and it's going to be that much more profitable for everybody. It's going to transform the way supply chains operate. So that's what I'm very, very thankful for as well. As it relates to 2026, like I said, I think it's going to be just a killer year. I'm pumped. I think we're going to see more acquisitions. I think there's some big companies out there that are in some very financial, that are treading some pretty tough financial times for them. And so it'll be interesting to see what ends up shaking out there. But I expect at least one or two pretty big acquisitions to happen because of financial issues. But I'm excited about what's in front of us for 2026. How about you, Richard?
Well, I'm first and foremost thankful that both of you were able to join me on Print Island tonight. I'm really enjoying the ability to bring people together on the island. We describe it as the Spotify for print, where wherever you are in the world, you can come to Print Island and find something that's interesting. And I think that's something that's probably been missing a little bit over the last few years. A lot of content being created, but we've decided to aggregate that content rather than create it particularly. So I'm very thankful that that's been possible. I'm very much enjoying the ride of that, and I think a little bit like both of you, you have to be confident going into a new year, don't you? Because otherwise you'd find the tallest building and jump off it. But I'm not a fan of heights, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to stick with the optimism and look forward, I think, to what 2026 will bring. It's such an exciting time for the industry at this evolutionary point, and we'll look back on this in years to come as the point where everything changed, and you don't notice at the time. It's really quite hard to sniff the change, but you can feel it, and I think it's a very sort of interesting juncture at the moment. The shows that I've been to this year, and I've seen the way that tech is building its way in. It's more the tech industry now than it is the print industry. But in many ways, I think the combination of both of those things is great for us right now. It's great for the next generation, importantly. And I think most importantly, consumers are beginning to recognize the value of print, and not just in the way that they think it is, but the way that they didn't know it was, and that education piece is reaching a much wider world. So I think we're set fair, actually, as we sit here tonight in the lighthouse on Print Island. There's no storms. The sea is calm, the sky is clear, and I'm very, very grateful to have you both join me tonight in the lighthouse. Thank you so much for both of your time.
Thank you. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything you are doing on Print Island. It's exciting to be a part of it.
It is.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.